Okay, good morning, Shabbat Shalom. Very glad to be able to be here all together today. So as many of you know, Ruth and I have 4 daughters, but I don't talk about them very much in public and almost never specifically. I might allude to them in general, but I never talk about them individually because I really do want to respect their privacy. Being the child of a rabbi is not an easy thing. And people say things to them that they really shouldn't. And we're really finding out now some of the things that have been said to them over the years. Not by anyone here, you're fine. But there is a list. But we have really tried to protect their privacy as much as possible. But I really am incredibly proud of each one of them. I am very grateful for all of them. But when people hear that we have 4 daughters, the responses I get tend to be things like, one more and you could have a basketball team. Not funny. It's a little funny. Or one more and you could be like Tevye from Fiddler on the Roof. And to be honest, I don't like either one of those comparisons, and I particularly don't like the Tevye one because Tevye was only proud of the kids that did what he wanted them to do. He had a very strained relationship with the ones who made their own choices. The ones who were like him, he was very comfortable with. The ones who veered away, he was not comfortable with. And I really don't think that that was a healthy approach to things. But then people would say, well, you have all daughters. How do you feel about your last name not being carried on? Now, my father lost his siblings in the Holocaust. Our daughters are the only grandchildren from that side of the family. And so I used to care a lot about my name continuing. And then I realized that was largely just a product of my own ego, or a product of what will my legacy be, or a fear of being forgotten. But then I realized, like, lots of names don't get passed down. It's the people who continue, but names change and names evolve. And I realized that it didn't matter. What mattered is that our daughters are very kind, they are strong, they're independent, they are very loving, and that's the part that really matters to me. Now again, it took me a long time, like maybe last Tuesday. You know, we're all a work in progress. But this, you know, it was really an issue that I cared about, especially when they were younger. And I realized, again, it was just so much about my own fear, my own ego, my own insecurity, that it may have actually even sort of taken away from realizing that they just need to be their own people and pursue their own path. And they have. By the way, people do that anyway, with your approval or without. They often do it, but they feel better with your approval. The analogy that does resonate with me more strongly is from our Torah portion towards the end of the Torah portion, which are Benot Selofachad, the daughters of someone named Selofachad. Now, that was their father. We don't know the name of the mother. The Bible is filled with a lot of men who were doing all the begatting, but I assume that there was another parent involved in there as well, who helped create them for the kind of people they became. We know almost nothing about Selofachad. We know that he didn't have sons, that he wasn't part of the rebellion against Korach, but that was about it. But it was his daughters who were extraordinary. The rule in the Torah, even in the wilderness, was that only sons could inherit from the father, inherit both money and then inherit property when they would go into the land of Israel. And since Zelophehad died without male heirs, there was a concern among the family that they would not be able to inherit anything. And so they went to Moses and they said, this isn't fair. We are entitled to an inheritance as well. And they become the model for, even in the Torah, changing the Torah. The Torah doesn't get completed before it's already changed. And the Torah talks about that they were just extraordinarily brave, and that they had an incredible ability to know when to speak to be effective, to only choose partners who were worthy of them, and that they were able to fight for their rights and to fight for the rights of other people. And in the Midrash, it says the daughters of Zelophehad came forward, which is to show that the women of that generation were protecting the Torah, protecting the people when the men were giving up. And this is from a text from 1800 years ago. This isn't a recent text. This was a text that's saying that if you look carefully at the Torah, the people who were really protecting the people and showing courage were the women, not the men. And this goes all the way back to Moses' mother, Moses' sister, to the daughter of Pharaoh, that they were the ones who never gave up when the men around them were giving up. The Midrash also talks about that the women didn't even take part in the making of the golden calf, that they said this is not the way to go. Another aspect of the wisdom that they showed is that they knew when to speak at the right moment to be effective. A lot of people speak a lot. Almost no one is effective because they are talking to talk and not talk to be heard. What the daughters of Zelophehad did is that as Moses was writing about the laws of inheritance, they said to him, if you are like a son, let us inherit, but if not, let our mother perform levirate marriage, meaning that these rules were very much only made to benefit men and not to benefit anybody else. And so what they said was something really extraordinary, according to the Midrash, is that human beings, when it comes to women, are not merciful if these are the laws. Only God is merciful, and if God is merciful, why aren't people being merciful? The daughters of Zelophehad, according to this, were saying that God isn't sexist, it's human beings who are. And again, this is a text from over 1800 years ago, already calling out a number of the inequalities. And they also, according to the Midrash, they only married people who were worthy of them, not just who their parents wanted them to marry or thought were appropriate. They had to make decisions in their own lives. And this, to me, is what is so powerful about what we need to think about, not just for daughters, not just for sons, just for all children. Is, are we giving them the space to figure out who they are? Are we giving them the space to fight for what they think is important? Or are we just yelling at them all the time, telling them that they don't care? By the way, how effective is that? How often did it work? You yelled at someone, you don't care about anything. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'll get on that immediately. There is a belief that the next generation doesn't know and doesn't care, and that we have to tell them what to do, and we need to tell them what to think, and we have to tell them who to vote for. And it doesn't work. What works is giving them kindness, compassion. What works is speaking with, not speaking at. The daughters of Zelophehad are a brilliant example of how younger people can stand up for the right thing on their own. What needed to happen was the older generation to respect that. And that's what Moses did. Moses' greatness was putting aside his ego and saying we need to change the law for the betterment of the next generation, not just telling them, well, this is just the rule and that's the way it is, and you have to deal with that. When we think of our own legacy, of what we're passing down, we're not passing down our name, we're not passing down telling people what to do. Our legacy has to be, does the next generation feel loved and supported for who they are? Do they feel like they have an inheritance in our people? Do they feel like they have an inheritance in the world that is their own? What we have to pass down is a celebration of kindness, a celebration of intelligence, resilience, and perseverance that the next generation already has. All we have to do is nurture it and make room for it, and that ultimately will be our legacy. Shabbat Shalom.